Let's get ready to rumble. Welcome back, dear listeners, to the Friday Flight Podcast, where we rank, recap, and review any movie in a given horror franchise. What are we talking about today?
Today we're covering 2022's Netflix Texas Chainsaw Massacre, directed by David Blue Garcia, screenplay by Chris Thomas Devlin, and a return of Fede and Rodo from the Evil Dead remake and the Don't Breathe film franchise.
Yes.
Did the story.
Love it. Initial thoughts. I enjoyed it.
Wow, really?
Yeah.
I don't know why I assumed you were going to come in not liking this movie.
I had some my family made little comments to me, which we'll talk about.
What are these comments?
They were talking about the characters, and there's no shade to my family.
Okay, no shade. Zero shade here,
Zero
guys.
shade, family.
No shade.
No shade. They were like, all of these characters were just really woke.
Okay.
And I was like, watching this, and I was like, what are they talking about?
Excuse me?
Until the end, like towards the end, when a phone was pulled out and a phrase was used, canceled, then I was like, okay, I see that. But
you don't think these characters are woke AF, dog?
I just think that they're, I don't know, I just feel, I don't see the problem here.
Okay, let's have this really short discussion real quick. There's a crux of the film for me, and that is the characters. And I think a lot of the people that are, I think your family isn't alone. I think a lot of like the people who like on Twitter or whatever have very similar criticisms.
Okay.
Now, and it's about the characters and how they are and they're too woke or whatever. Regardless of whether you think that is true or not, do you like the cast of characters we get?
I did not dislike it at all.
You didn't dislike them?
I think the only one I did dislike was just the casting, and this is no shade to the actress, the casting of Elsie Fisher.
Oh, wow. I love Elsie Fisher.
I love Elsie Fisher as an actress, but I just did not really enjoy her character in this film. I didn't think that she brought a lot of, like, genuine fear to the role.
Right. Here, let's go down the cast list, because I loved Elsie Fisher in the film, of Bo Burnham, 8th grade fame.
Love 8th grade. 8th
grade's a fantastic film.
Made me cry, made me laugh, made me feel so many things.
And in this movie, she's playing Lila. She's she survived a school shooting. That's kind of her backstory.
I mean, I guess if you want to dig deep into her characterization of Lila, we don't know what that's like to go through a school shooting like that. I've never personally been through one, but we hear it every day.
Yeah, it's not uncommon anymore.
It's not uncommon anymore. It's actually very much part of our society, our norm.
Yeah, kids that go to school are just like, that's on their mind.
Yeah. I don't even want to get into that because it's a whole ordeal. But I guess in my brain, I was like, oh, she didn't bring a lot of fear to it. But then again, if you go through that, I guess maybe you've kind of already dealt with fear.
Yeah, I think that's kind of part of it. And in the movie, you see some points where she's just kind of like zoning out completely. And I think that's part of, having experience, being a little triggered, I guess. Traumatized, jaded about it. We have Sarah Yarkin playing Melody, Lila's sister.
Really enjoyed this actress.
You liked her?
Really enjoyed her.
Me too. I think, she has a certain look to her.
Yeah.
And I think her performance does have the range, because I feel like part of her characterization and how she interacts with the emotions that go into her character are very specific. And I think she really does a good job of expressing that to the audience. Yep.
I do have some gripes about the movie, but I mean, we'll get into it. It's not a lot. But yeah, really enjoyed Melody.
We have Mark Burnham playing as Leatherface. Apparently, he was cast because of his physique, his imposing stature, and physicality.
Makes sense. He was perfect.
He's big.
He's perfect.
That is very important for you.
It's a very important thing because even in the original,
he was a big guy.
Just he's a tower.
Yeah, I think the enjoyment of the original movie is inextricable with Gunnar Hansen and his performance. So I can see how having the right person play Leatherface is a big deal.
And even in the 2003 and the beginning remakes, like that Leatherface also did an amazing job. So if you are a big guy in stature, tall and wide, that kind of thing, I implore you, and I'm begging you to be Leatherface for Halloween, and or send us photos of you being Leatherface for Halloween.
Which I think is a pretty easy costume to muster up.
Really easy.
All you need is like, well, I mean, I guess it depends on which one you want to do.
There's so many different versions.
Yeah, you can do a suit, you can do a dress, you can do the butcher apron going on. We also have Jacob Lattimore playing Dante Spivey. Now, he and Melody are kind of like, Dante and Melody, they're like social influencer chefs.
Yeah, very interesting dynamic.
Yeah, it's an interesting idea. And Dante's coming with his girlfriend, Ruth, being played by Neil Hudson.
I'll be honest, throughout the whole movie, I did not hear them mention her name one time.
I don't know if they did.
They literally, I watch movies with subtitles.
Yes.
Because I feel like I miss out on everything that's happening, so I need to make sure that I am
tuned in.
Tuned in, and I don't miss like small things, because sometimes they do have those weird little background conversations that are important later, and I'm like, why would they do this to me?
You miss out on it.
You missed out on it. And every time it mentions her talking, it says Dante's partner.
Dude, that is kind of messed up, because I feel like her name is Ruth, but it's only like in the script.
Yeah.
Because
we don't get to know Ruth. We get to know Dante's partner.
Yeah. Which is kind of messed up, because I feel like she gets a lot of screen time. She
does.
has a whole scene with Leatherface, just her and him, like for an extended period of time.
She also does. Well, I can't even say, like, individually, everyone has done a great job. And I do have a gripe about one person per se, but that is it as far as performances go.
Okay, so those are our main four. You know,
Yeah.
we have this cast and crew, and the whole plot of the movie is essentially that they're going into a town, like a mostly
Harlow,
Texas, that is mostly abandoned.
Can I tell you something really weird? It's a little confession.
Confess.
So,
child.
In 9th grade, we had like family consumer sciences classes, and they, instead of letting you take a baby home, because that was for like the more further into the child development courses, more like advanced ones. That's also part of your, like, if that was your career pathway. Well, in my career pathway, it wasn't. I was just in the intro to it. So family consumer sciences general class, you had to take an egg home, and that was your baby.
Okay, yeah.
And I named my baby Harlow. Because I thought Harlow was like a cool combination between Harley and Willow.
I love it. Harlow?
I do too.
Yeah, it's a great name.
My family all bullied me. They said it was a terrible name. And I was like, I don't know. My baby did eventually. I had to write a paper on sudden infant death syndrome because somebody was spinning my baby around in the basket and they dropped it. So my baby...
So you were neglecting the baby.
No, I asked them to hold on to it for me, and they were like just spinning it around carelessly. And I was like, I feel like I shouldn't get in trouble for this.
I feel like you should, because that means obviously you're an awful judge of character. Like, who would drop their baby off with like a maniac?
Here's the thing: it's not a baby; it's an egg. I feel like people would treat it much different
if it was a baby.
If it were an actual baby.
So what happened to the egg?
It was not very. It was physically altered.
Did it crack?
It was, I think they were, I don't know if they were hard-boiled eggs or not, but it was definitely cracked.
Okay.
I think I had to put it in a plastic baggie.
Were you sad, mad, or did you think it was funny?
Both. I was sad and mad because
did you think it was funny at all?
No, I wasn't. I did not think it was funny because first of all, it impacted my grade, and I'm a brainiac. But yeah, anyway, Harlow, Texas. Here we go.
Yeah, we're in Harlow, Texas, and it's a town that not a lot of people live in. It's in deep South Texas.
The population, 1,974.
Oh, really?
Slight thing.
That's cool.
Like a slight nugget for
the original release. Yeah, that's awesome. Super cool. And the idea essentially is that they're going to open up a shop and make this area into a utopia for people and then they won't have to worry about a lot of the struggles that this group of four faces where they're from, and they're trying to build their own space down here in Texas. And this, the movie starts off with them in a car driving, just as we, typically start a lot of Texas Chainsaw films. And they come across a gas station, and at the gas station,
as per usual, as they do.
Yep, and they have a television kind of showing off like like a documentary about the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. So it completely references the original film. So this movie is another timeline. You know, this is like our third timeline we're getting.
Yeah.
And we're going from this is pretty much a direct sequel, it feels like, to the original film. Would you say?
I would say it. The only thing that I think it's important to note, because I read this quote and I thought it was worth sharing, was that Fede, the guy who helped write this original story, he spoke about the relation to the other sequels, and he said that it does not explicably erase the continuity of them. He says when movies do that, sometimes it feels a bit disrespectful to all the other films. Some people love Texas Chainsaw 2. I love a lot of things about that movie. It's so wacky and of its time, but the rest is just such a mess canon-wise. I think it's up to you to decide when and how the events of the other movies happen. So it kind of leaves it up to you. I mean, I think that that's the beauty and the mess of all of the other films, though, is that they could theoretically be they could all theoretically be related, but
that gets really messy though, like you said, absolutely. Like really messy canon. So
that's why I'm such a harp on that continuity, because story-wise it wouldn't add up. It does seem like it's a relation to the original film, but like many years later.
Which I think is the best way to view it personally, because if you start adding in all those other movies and considering them canon, then it's kind of like it's just too messy. So it's easiest to just think of this as a sequel, I think, to the original film. But anyway, at this gas station, there's a documentary playing on the TV about like Sarah Hardesty and the rest of the gang. Sally Hardesty.
Sarah.
Tomato, potato. You know what I'm saying? And apparently we get some little tidbits of info that Sally has now gone on to be like a ranger that has been hunting down Leatherface since you know her tragedy has happened, but to no avail apparently.
So I like this storyline, but at the same time, I also dislike it. It almost, and I don't know how long ago the story was made before it was released. Yeah. But without spoiling anything, because I don't want to, it's a very similar storyline to another franchise that I don't want to name. That makes me a little like, and the execution was just not as successful.
Okay.
And we'll get there when we get there, and I think you'll probably know when we get there, because you'll probably see the timeline, and you'll be like, oh, this is very similar to something else we watched.
Right.
I promise you, because that's the first thing I thought, and I was like, interesting take. Okay. It wasn't as well executed as the other franchises' storyline there, but I also was like really upset because I was like, is this the original girl? And I was like staring really hard at her every time we got the chance to see her. And this was one of my biggest gripes. But then I found out that Marilyn Burns could not return for the role because she died in 2014.
She had passed away. I do think, though, like, I think you could take it at face value. I think if you didn't look it up, like, I think most people would assume that would have been the same person. Yeah. Because I think the casting was done well.
It was done well. I was looking at her eyes. I was like, I could probably tell if it's her by the eyes. Like, I was really trying, but they never really, like...
It's a long time in between.
Very long time.
So I don't blame you or anything. But yeah, they're going to Texas, and on their way out of getting the gas, this guy in a big truck pulls up. His name is Richter.
Yeah.
And Melody, not a big fan of this Richter guy, making fun of him for driving a truck.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we all know those truck drivers. There are some truck drivers out there who compensate for their small peepees. They got to have a real big truck to feel manly. And then, you know.
And that's what Melody says. And then unfortunately for her, we later found out that this Richter character is going to be involved in this movie because he's a mechanic that they're going to go see.
Yeah, he's their contractor, which is like, oh, Melody, foot in the mouth immediately. Yeah. You know, I feel like a situation like that would probably happen to me.
I could see that happening, yeah.
Because sometimes I'm not. I mean, I've gotten better over the years where if I disagree with people, I sometimes... it's hard because whenever I disagree with people, it's hard for me not to say something, like not to say my piece.
Yeah.
And I've tried my best as I've gotten older to just be like, is this worth the headache?
Yeah, I'm completely the opposite, I'd say. I don't know if it's based on like upbringing or just personal, maybe your star sign or something. But I am so like peacekeeper. Like even if it makes me look like, oh, they think I'm wrong, even though I know I'm right, I'll just be like, I just let it happen like that. It's fine with me.
I've also tried to get out of this, like, because I do like try to educate myself all the time. And there are some things online where it's like, you don't want to be a white savior kind of thing. Like if somebody else may or may not be offended, it's not necessarily like as a bystander, say something, whatever. But there's also like this weird boundary where it's like there is a crossing that boundary at some point when you become like a white savior, when it's like maybe they don't need you to say something, right, kind of thing. So I've also just tried to like retract or like, also remind myself that people will have shitty opinions, and it is not my job to change their shitty opinions.
Yes.
Even though some of it does pertain to things like people living in this life, being happy, and it doesn't bother them.
I'm glad you say that because that kind of comes up in this movie.
Yeah.
Once they get into town, Melody, I don't think subscribes to this way of thinking. I don't think because she does make these comments out there, and Elsie Fisher's character kind of has to like pull her back a little bit, and Melody does apologize for this, saying like sorry, I know I don't have to fight your battles for you or anything like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I do appreciate in general like the sister dynamic. I feel like
I love a good sister dynamic. We don't get a lot of them.
No, we don't, but we do get a couple here in Lila and Melody.
And let me tell you, like my sister and I, we are literally like this. So I love a good sister dynamic just because like
representation.
Yeah, it's just different. I feel like you see some sister dynamics and some things, but it's just not as well done as this one. Because the two are polar opposites. Not that opposite, but like it's also just nice to see sisters that, and this is just part of the casting, I guess, that don't really physically look alike as well. Yeah. Which is something that I grew up with, where my sister and I don't really look alike, but we're sisters.
Yeah, and I feel like they have a very sibling relationship with each other. Like they're not
fighting.
They're at odds often, but you still see like an underlying level of just like care,
love, and care. Exactly.
Yeah. Well, on the way into the town, that the four that we're following they meet up with a couple of the officers. They get pulled over, and they're a little tense about the situation. And the officer just tells them that, hey, like everybody knows that you're coming. So, a lot of the people that have been living here have been here for a while. So we just ask you to be respectful to the community. And Melody, talks to the officer for a second, and it's just like, yes, our grandma lived here before, and they share like a saying that they used to have. And then they drive back into town, into Harlow, and that's where they meet Richter, who ends up being their contractor. But they get into town, Richter's there. And like I said, I think this is a part of the movie where like this beginning part is where people have a big problem with the film. Like on the way out of the gas station, for example, the cashier, was called them gentry fuckers.
Okay.
Because essentially they're coming from a different state and gentrifying this small town. And they, people have been living here for a long time, and you have this outside group of people that want to come in and completely change everything with disregard of like what has previously existed for a long period of time. When they first show up, they see a Confederate flag atop an orphanage inside this small town.
Great example for those children.
And his immediate reaction is, we have to go get that down. That cannot be here because we have the investors coming. He gets out of the car and he says something like late stage capitalism. He's excited about it. And I think this movie, I don't know how much of it is, I don't think this movie takes a side on anything or anything. I think it's just
not explicit.
I think it's just more modern. I think this film engages with a lot of like culturally relevant things
and
now.
modern issues.
And I think just because it doesn't make it woke, and it doesn't make it necessarily make a commentary. I think a lot of this stuff is just in our vocabulary now, and I think a lot of people that rub against it in a wrong way might be just because they're not used to seeing this kind of thing. But that's just how time works. You know what I mean? Like as time moves on, the movies reflect, real life. So while people might be used to, a certain era of film and what's going on, or even when movies started getting cell phones or things like that, like that's just inevitable. We will have more movies that reflect, the times or whatever. And I think that's something that this movie does, because it is very modern. 2022, it just came out last year.
Right.
So to me, it makes sense. All that being said, I am kind of on a different boat than you are about the characters. I really dislike them.
Really?
I really dislike them. And I think part of it is intentional, where I think, in some movies, especially horror movies, they make you dislike a character so that you can enjoy
their death.
Similarly to like the 90s movie Leatherface, Texas Chainsaw Massacre 3, the boyfriend, I forget his name.
Yeah, Brad or something.
He was awful, right?
He was awful, and I hated him, and I was like, die.
Exactly. So I feel like...
No, wait, that was Next Generation, I think.
Yeah, or was it Next Generation? Yeah, you're right, it was Next Generation. But in that movie, intentionally like annoying character.
Yeah.
And I feel like our cast of characters here for me are really annoying.
There is a bit of annoyance for sure, but I mean, overall, I thought they were like, they all had a lot of like not as much depth as they could have had, but they did have depth, and that's something that I enjoy from a character in general.
I agree with you. Because I feel like this movie, at the very least, despite whether you liked it or not, was definitely evocative of like a certain emotions, whether you disagree.
Like whenever I say that I liked them, I don't mean that they are likable characters.
Yeah. Okay. I see what you mean. But you like that they have depth and their characters.
And I liked the actors who portrayed them.
I see.
And I liked the dynamics. Like we have a couple, the rest are friends, and then sisters. Like there's a lot of different things going on.
I see what you mean.
And like the story in general is enticing. Like, they're coming and trying to make this town better, kind of thing.
Which is what annoys me so much. Like even the Confederate flag, I think Dante's completely wrong about wanting to take it down. Well, because of a few things. Like one, it definitely appears that he wants to take it down not out of a sense of morality, but
because of investors,
of a financial situation. You know what I mean? And I feel like that comes up a couple of times. Like even when he comes in, I say he prides himself in like this being late stage capitalism, and this is a capitalist endeavor that they're on. They're basically trying to kick everybody out of this town that's been living there for a while,
which is not cool.
It's not cool.
I mean, you see a lot of places doing this. I mean, hell, even Nashville's doing this.
Yes,
East Nashville specifically.
People are getting, their rent is getting up too high. They can't live there anymore. And they're getting kicked out by, this like wave of other people coming in.
You see it specifically in East Nashville that I know of, because there are a lot of like, not low income, but lower income, like housing areas and apartments. And you see those people being impacted by like big power outages because of like big, like Nissan Stadium having gigantic concerts and people can't support the power like in other places. Like those are the first places that will receive those power outages. But then you also have up and coming like new hip restaurants, and then like even those places suffer a little bit too. But I mean, they keep adding these places. It's kind of like where we live now, where if there's a free space of land, townhomes.
So many townhomes, yeah.
So many.
And unfortunately, like, I'm interested in civil engineering and city planning. None of it is made with a lot of foresight. So a lot of it ends up causing problems for like the infrastructure of the city. And it annoys the hell out of me. And it makes me feel like nobody's thinking about this.
Yep.
Which is very unfortunate, but I don't think that's unique to us. That's just probably American cities across the board, unfortunately. One of the buildings in this little town is like this orphanage, right?
Right.
This dilapidated orphanage who only 2 people live in, because it's no longer an orphanage. It has since retired as an orphanage, and it now belongs to Ginny, who.
Why did I think her name was something different?
I did too. I feel like they called her Vern or like
Virginia or something like that.
Oh, that's probably where it comes from. Ginny, Virginia. You okay, man?
I am stupid, bro. Don't show this to my haters. They're gonna.
Haters?
Yeah, my haters. Oh, they're gonna be like, take her off the podcast. She's dumb as bricks.
I didn't know either. J-I-N. That's only 3 letters.
That makes a lot of sense, though. Jenny from Virginia. Yeah. Makes sense. Okay, moving on.
Well, Ginny takes care of one of the boys that she's raised since he was young at the orphanage. We don't know immediately who he is, I guess. I mean, we know who he is. It's Leatherface that she's been raising for all this time.
Here's my problem with this storyline. In the photos, in this like 75 is what it said.
Did it?
I think it said 1975. Oh, wow. Okay. So this would have happened a year after he killed all of these kids, right?
And he was a kid.
But he was not a kid in that film. That was a full-grown man, baby. And
well, maybe this is what you're getting to. But if this movie obviously takes place in 2022.
Yeah.
And 1974 was 50 years ago.
Right.
So if he was 20 years old in the original Texas Chainsaw movie, he'd be 70 in this movie.
He would not be having the strength to be doing all this stuff. And that's... anyway, that's just another big gripe of mine where I'm like, really?
It's just, what can you do? Just ignore the events of the original completely, say it's not tied in?
Yeah, because then I'm like... Where? Like, when did he become part of this orphanage? Like, he had his whole family.
Especially if, like Fede said, like, if the other events of the other movies took place, like 1 through 4, then he would have been much older. You know what I mean?
Correct.
Before he even came to the orphanage.
Correct. I was like, well, in the 2003 remake, he would have been born in the 30s. And then, like, in the 60s... Yeah. He was like, what, 30-something?
He'd be almost 100 years old.
Is what I'm thinking. I'm like, this motherfucker is like 100 years old killing people? There ain't no way.
It doesn't really make much sense.
I'd be like, you have to, use a wheelchair.
I'm into it. That'd be a fun movie.
That would be a fun movie. Yeah. That'd be very camp if you guys wanted to do that. And Go for it.
I do like the camp. But Dante and Melody go into this house and just to check it out, to take down the flag. They're not able to, they get Richter to do that job. But while they're inside the house, they come across Ginny. And they say to her, like, you're not supposed to be here. Like, the bank foreclosed this property a long time ago.
That's also a big problem, though, is like fucking insurance, fucking banks, like all of these like big capitalist schemes. I fucking hate it.
Yeah, they're awful, aren't they?
Yeah.
And like this is a woman who has prided her life in doing a lot of good for the world, taking care of orphans.
And that's not an easy task.
It's not an easy task. And
it's very selfless.
They're here in Texas, like gun state, and very, very red state. And she's taken care of several orphans of all colors, and she's also been holding back Leatherface from doing any killing for a long time. So she's doing a lot of good for the community. But Dante and Melody are barging into this woman's home and mistakenly, like wrongly, kicking her out of her own house.
Man, when it's revealed that they fucked up.
Isn't that crazy?
It's so sad.
It is sad because Ginny ends up collapsing and having a heart attack. And it's all caused by these two like overzealous teens.
Because of their so she's like so stressed and high strung about this situation that she's like, I have the title, and they're like, you don't have the title. Like the entitlement that these characters have.
Exactly, they're very entitled.
You think that you could just come into someone's house and demand to see their papers and stuff like. Who the fuck are you? They've been in this town way longer than you've been born.
Exactly. And see, this is I think this nails a problem on the head that like I typically have, like remaining, like removed from like any kind of political, side or whatever. I think a lot of people who see the world in like black and white, right and wrong, have this idea of just pushing what they think is the right thing to do. But I think in doing so, it doesn't help. And really, it creates a wider gap of disparity. And I think that's kind of what goes on here, where like I feel like if you genuinely want to, create bridges and narrow the gap, you actually want to form relationships with people that you might disagree with and, come to terms on something. But these characters do not seem remotely interested in that. They're very authoritarian and like just wanting to push their way.
You know what that reminds me of is like, okay, so the actress Sydney Sweeney from Euphoria.
Okay.
Very great actress, very talented actress. we have this big like mob culture, this cancel culture that comes out, and because she was celebrating a family member's birthday, and I think they had on like a MAGA thing or some sort of like, it was something politically related to the Republican side, and people were like, I can't believe you'd support that. You probably voted for Trump. And it's like, first of all, that's very invasive.
Yeah.
Second of all, she does not owe you anything.
Yes.
3, we all have family members who are strongly supportive one way or the other that we may not agree with, but we still love them, and obviously we wish we could change their opinion, but we just can't do that with everybody. I agree with you.
I think there's a dehumanization of like in this movie, representative Southern people. I feel like, like I live in the South and I'm very prideful of the South. But I have views that aren't associated with the South. Right. And I think people think of us as stupid. I think people think of us as...
everyone thinks I'm stupid online, so...
and I think dehumanizing people like that is a, like, I don't know, just a shortcut to disaster, because that's not what you want to do. We're all people at the end of the day.
Because, like, obviously the Confederate flag has a lot of, like, negative connotations. And
it does. But there's some nuance here. Like, she explains herself, and here's the thing. I am also not a fan of the Confederate flag.
I'm not either.
But this woman lives in Texas. You know what I mean? And the way she explains how she views the flag personally isn't in a negative connotation. Like, she explains that, like, it just reminds her of her dad. And while that may be, whatever for her, it might, affect other people negatively, it hasn't. And she lives in this place, Texas. So maybe there is a point where it could be communicated with her, like, hey, this hurts another subset of people. But instead of approaching anywhere near that kind of like calm conversation, they just take it down. They intrude themselves their way in there. They barge in and do it themselves into a space that isn't there at all. And I think when we approach situations like this, it leads to violence. It leads to nothing, no compromise.
Divide and everything.
Yeah.
I think that there's also there's this like depth of sadness to Jenny when but I mean, it's just like she's so set in her ways, and it's abundantly clear that she's living in the past a little bit.
Yes.
But I mean, it's Texas, and
in a small town,
and like this ghost town, essentially. Harlow is a ghost town.
It doesn't seem like they have a lot of interaction with the outside world at large.
So I mean, it makes sense that she would think, oh, this is okay. But she also uses an old term that they used back in like the 50s and 60s.
To describe Dante and the kind of people that she would raise in the orphanage.
As a black person, instead of saying like, I've raised young black boys, she just straight up says a different word that I don't even feel comfortable using because it just feels so old and like uneducated.
Yes.
And that's the thing, though, and they just immediately, which I mean, not for me to say that they.
Yeah, but there is like I was saying earlier, there's nuance. Like her intention isn't to degrade anybody, here, and like to make any kind of change or strides, that there needs to be like an actual sense of communication instead of like just aggressiveness.
I think it would have obviously in this Dante utopia kind of thing, or however they were trying to create this little community, which the idea itself sounds great. It sounds like it sounds really cool without pushing out the old community.
Yeah,
there needs to be an enmeshing and a relationship, because you know what they could have done? They could have revamped that orphanage for her, and if she wanted to hire some help, she could have, started taking care of more children again. But then, I mean, barring anything with Leatherface.
Right.
But I mean,
but who knows the possibilities?
Who knows? But that in a perfect world, that's what would have happened, I imagine, is that it would have been a booming community. Yeah. She would have been heavily involved in it, and they could have educated her a little bit, and then they would have been happy neighbors.
But that's not what happened here.
It's not what fucking happened.
Not happened at all. Melody and Dante barge in there, say, this is ours, and you have to leave. The police officers remove her. While she's having a heart attack, they put her in a van to go to the hospital. Leatherface is in the back seat with her. Melody wants to come along because she feels bad. But Dante tells her, no, you can't go. Like, they're here. Like, the bus full of investors just got to the town. Like, we can't go. And then Ruth says, Dante's girlfriend, that, hey, we have to leave. Like I'll go for you. You know, like, you guys do your thing. Me, I'll go and make sure that she ends up okay.
Yeah.
Right? And then
which is really selfless of Ruth. I mean, to be like, hey, so they're expecting you to. You are the face of this community that's happening. You go and do that, and I'll go and make sure that the woman's okay.
Exactly, yeah. Like, very supportive partner, like you said.
Which is another thing I wanted to mention, though, is while they were, like, searching this house before Jenny even shows up and kind of is like, hey, what are y'all doing in my house kind of thing. Like, while Dante's going through things, Leatherface can be seen sitting in a chair in one point in a frame, like, outside. Like, it was like a door frame, and then Leatherface is in a chair. And then, obviously, it goes to Mel, and then it comes back, and he's gone. So I was like, ooh.
Now that we're already on the subject of that, I gotta say, I really enjoyed the cinematography in this film.
Very well done. I feel like
there are some shots that are just, you could just pause and it's like a wallpaper or like a painting or something. That happens a few times. And I also just enjoy the editing in the movie. I feel like we get some faster paced action shots.
We do. And another cool thing that I really appreciate, and this was something that was kind of like hinted to me by my family. They were like, oh man, the kills in that movie are brutal. And I was like, okay, looking forward to it. I love a good like horror movie. I love a good like gory horror movie. I'm like, yeah, let's see what happens. And when I tell you, I was like, when the first like few kills started happening, my jaw was like,
yeah, right.
My jaw dropped. I was like, oh my God, this is gruesome.
It's gory.
I loved it.
And here's the thing, I'm not typically a fan of this kind of thing, but this movie makes it fun.
Yeah.
Like, and it's like visceral, it's intentional, it's cool.
It is really cool.
It's cool. So yeah, I really enjoy that for sure.
Cool. We're changing you. I love this.
Yeah, it is really interesting. You know, do you know how many movies we've covered now, Geraldine?
We've covered so many movies.
We've covered like, I think 20 movies or so.
We'll have to keep count of all of the movies, but I mean, here we are at the finale of our third season, and now you're saying I enjoyed like the gore.
I did. It was fun because it's just, my problem typically is just like, oh God, like I kind of view it as it being real, but I think now that I'm doing that less so and understanding these are fictional characters,
yeah,
it's desensitizing me a little bit. Whether or not that's good for my humanity. I'm not sure, but you know, at least I'm watching these movies. At
least you're watching the movies with an open mind, open heart, and you're enjoying it. You're watching it for pure enjoyment. That's what it's about, and that's what horror is.
I'm getting there, like shortly but surely.
Yeah.
Yeah, but Ginny's in the backseat of this car that the cops are driving her in, and she kind of holds Leatherface's hand and says like, you remember who you are, how I raised you, don't go into my room.
Yeah.
And then that's it. Lights out. She's gone.
She is deader than dead.
R.I.P. Leatherface immediately kicks into action, tries to put her oxygen mask on, tries to, you know, bring her back to life basically, or give her what she needs. It's not working out. And the officer that's hanging out with them behind in the truck grabs his hand, like, so he would stop messing with her. And Leatherface is not like this.
No, he does not.
He gets upset, immediately just splits his freaking wrists in half.
Ugh!
And then shoves his bones into his own neck.
That was the coolest. I was like, what?
And the way they do it's just like immediate. Like, and I think that's, like I said, is what makes it so visceral.
It's also a testament to Leatherface's strength, but it's also like a story gap that I'm like, how old is this motherfucker? Would he really have that strength?
I'm ignoring that part.
It's hard.
I just look at him. He's big and he's strong.
He's big and he's strong, I guess.
Yeah. But he does this to this officer. I forget what he does to the other officer. Does he just like...
He does that and then somehow like shoots through the back of his head.
I think something like that, but in any case, he demobilizes the officer driving to have them like crash into like a giant field. It looks like a big farming machine.
Sunflower field is what it looks like.
Yes, I don't know what it is.
They were like kind of naked sunflowers.
They were very tall plants, whatever they were.
I think they were naked sunflowers because they looked just like they had like the brown part of the sunflower, but without all the beautiful petals. So maybe it was like the season where they were maybe dying kind of thing.
So you think they are sunflowers?
I think they are sunflowers.
I'm not very familiar with flowers. But they crash into this site. Ruth awakes to find that like, oh, everything's messed up now. The guy behind me looks dead. The two people, like, I don't see Leatherface or his mom in the back seat because he's kind of busy dragging her out and then slicing her face off and then putting it on top of his own. And, Leatherface is back.
You know what's funny? And this is another complaint that a lot of my family and friends have made where they said that they didn't like his mask. They said that he looked like a pig. And I was like, I honestly thought he was terrifying.
Yeah, me too. I think it looks super scary.
I really...
And that it's his mom's.
Yeah, that makes it even more messed up. But here's my thing. Is it really his mom?
Actually, you know what? Probably not his mom.
Because
but his caretaker.
His caretaker that has been basically his mother for many years, even though we still don't quite understand the storyline here between the original and this, but I digress. His mother, whatever, that's even more messed up,
Yeah, it is really messed up that, that's whose face. And it's not like he hasn't treated it or anything. He just like slaps it on his face right from birth.
Slaps it on his face, bloody.
The only thing, my only thought, well, it was silly, but my only thought was just, how's it keeping on his face? That was my only thought. Like, how's it not
Well, I
falling
imagine he just kind of got a little bit of like the top of the head, like the scalp, and like pulled it over his or something. I don't know.
Not that it matters.
Not that it matters, but logistically, we have questions.
Yeah. Ruth kind of enters like this very tense-ridden scene where like she's stuck in this car. She doesn't know what to do. She doesn't want to open the door, alert Leatherface. She hears that there's a radio in this cop car, and she wants to communicate with them, but trying to be really quiet about it.
This scene was so tense, and I had so much anxiety because I was like, oh.
I wasn't sure if she was going to make it. I feel like if it was me, I'd jump out and run. Just because Leatherface is a huge guy, I feel like he wouldn't be able to chase me. But Ruth might have been injured.
Yeah.
After being in a car crash. Unfortunately for her, she doesn't make it out. Leatherface appears at the door side and stabs her in her tummy.
He like rips her tummy open, essentially. But so she's doing all of that, and then she sees the cop is still kind of alive, and then she pretends to kind of be dead, like the one eye open kind of situation. Watching him like beat in the cop's face. And then her window's not open. So then he, like, beats her window open after the fact. Just so tense.
It is really tense. It reminds me a lot of, there's a scene, I think, in Scream 2.
Yes.
I think Scream 2's was a little more tense.
Yeah.
But this one reminded me of that.
It reminded me of that as well. I was like, oh, it's from Scream 2. Like, dead person in the car, so we think.
Right. I forget how exactly this happens. It might have been through Ruth's attempt of communication, where we are we have this scene in a barn, like cutting up a pig, and it appears to be Sally Hardesty, the ranger who has been looking for Leatherface for all this time. Now suspects that she knows where he is.
Yep, because the radio call from the police thingy. I can't. What the fuck? I don't know.
Police radio?
Police radio. It gets to the guy who works at the gas station who initially warned them in the beginning and was like, we know who you are. All those things. And he calls Sally and he's like, there's been a killing. I think it's him. Because he hears Ruth saying, he's wearing her face. He's wearing her face.
So that can only mean one thing.
Yeah.
That it's Leatherface.
Yeah.
Now, back at the town, Melody has received a text from Ruth saying that the woman, Jenny, had died.
Yeah.
And, oh my gosh, Melody's like, I just killed her.
She's spiraling. And it's like, there is a level of responsibility there that, yes, they are, like, responsible for the death, but they didn't
I think they did kill her.
That's also like health issue. It's not just like.
But they caused the issue. They wrongly entered this woman's house and kicked her out of it.
Had they not done this, then yes, she would not have died, and she would have probably been fine.
And not only had they not done it, but they did do it, and they were wrong.
Yeah.
So I think their hubris did kill her, if not themselves.
So their guilty conscience makes them go back to the place because they're like, we have to look for the title.
It becomes a problem because Richter finds out about this, that, Ginny had died, and he takes away their keys for the bus and the car and tells them, hey, like, I just heard that lady died, like, and it's your guys' fault. You just killed that woman. And they're like, okay, we'll prove that we own the place by getting the title, but they can't find the title.
They can't find the title.
They don't have it. And then this is another little plot hole that doesn't make any sense. Their plan now is to look for the title at Ginny's house, because if they're in the right, she won't have it. And it's back at the bank somewhere or something, right? Yeah. But you can't prove a negative. Like, if they go into the house and if they do find the title, which they do, it proves that they're wrong and Ginny did have the title after all. But
if you don't find
it, you still have nothing to bring Richter to prove that you do own it.
Right.
So it doesn't make any sense whatsoever. But it doesn't even get that far, because during their search here, Melody's the one that finds the title and realizes, oh my God, we made a huge mistake. They killed this woman.
All while, by the way, this party's happening down in the community because all their investors are like, woo, community.
Yeah, they're all having a party, a barbecue no less.
Yeah.
We get kind of a shot of like the whatever are those things called? The barbecue machines? What are they?
Barbecue machines. What do you mean?
Like not a stove.
Like a smoker?
Is that what it is? They were cooking some burgers and hot dogs.
Or a grill?
Is that what it is?
Like what you cook a big
burger and hot dogs, yeah.
The grill.
Okay. Well, when they open the lid, they make that photography bowl. Yeah, they make that noise.
I love making that noise.
Nice little callback. I really like the noise.
I know, it's fun.
Yeah.
I really want to know what it is, though.
I think it is a camera.
I'm not convinced that I really know what that is.
I really like it, though.
Not that I don't know what a camera is. I don't want people to think that I'm that dumb.
You know what? I don't put it past these people,
Whatever.
But they're looking for the title, and somebody else is there, it appears. They're not alone in the house. Leatherface is there.
Which is ironic, because both Dante and Melody, or Mel, hear this person in the house when they think it's the other person. So they're like, Dante?
Yeah.
Melody? And it's not.
But Dante turns around, and it appears that it is Leatherface.
Man. This scene leading up to him seeing, like, Melody, interacting with Melody, that whole scene, Dante's death, like, this is not his actual death, but still.
What ends up killing him?
What ends up killing him in the end? This scene, their interaction was really, really well done. This shot, very cool.
Yeah, cool cinematography of like a door swinging open and getting you like glimpses of what's going on as Dante's getting got.
Creatively, beautifully shot. Wonderful.
I love it. And we do have a few examples of this kind of thing. So I really appreciate the cinematography in this movie. Dante's out. Melody is upstairs and sees Dante, knocked out and Leatherface over him. So she goes up, she hides in the closet.
Oh, so tense.
Here we got another one of these scenes where, she's trying to hold her, noise, not make too much noise. And Leatherface.
She actually did really well. She was crying silently. I could never cry silently, I don't think.
So you'd be making all the noise.
I'd be like,
but you criticize these people for doing that.
But if I'm in a life or death situation, I told you, I'm going to freeze.
Stone
I'm going to be
face?
like, yeah.
Okay. Well, she's not discovered, fortunately for her. Leatherface is kind of looking for, what is he looking for? Like
a dress.
A dress.
This is Jenny said, stay out of my room.
Yes.
First thing he does when he gets home, kills somebody, which is, I'm assuming, not what she taught him to do, not the person she taught him to be. And then secondly, goes in her room.
Now, I gotta say, Geraldine, I think another criticism I've heard people say about this film is that typically there's certain components that we expect from Texas Chainsaw movies, aside from our dreaded dinner scenes that me and you personally don't enjoy. We don't get other family members, really, that interact in, like, the killing. Like the original was all about, the family doing the killing.
Family unit, yeah.
This one's just Leatherface.
But this one's kind of like a keep it in the community kind of thing.
Exactly. I think what this movie does do, though.
But it's still family because it's his family that has been with him for many, many years. And it's still that important to him that then he goes on a fucking killing spree. So. Yes,
I agree. And I think in the original movie, the whole reason they end up starting to kill these people is because they they trespass on the property. Mm-hmm. And the same thing happens here where they trespass into the orphanage. So I feel like it still keeps like some tradition.
It does keep some tradition. It's just a different story, which I like that because I get tired of seeing the same damn story over and over again.
Me too. I think the people that have those complaints haven't seen the movies, like all of them. I feel like me and you are like probably one of the most astute, informed people on Texas Chainsaw.
Well, hear me out. This is really interesting because I brought this up to my brother. I was like, oh man, like we're doing Texas Chainsaw this season, and you've seen all of them, right? No.
Yeah.
Even he hasn't seen all of them.
I don't know if anybody has in the whole world besides you and me. I literally think like the percentage
is probably very low.
We're in a small crowd, Yeah. So if anybody has any questions, we're the experts on the subject.
We're the texperts.
Oh.
But
I like it, texperts.
Yeah.
We're not from Texas, though.
We're not from Texas.
No. But maybe we'll go one day. And then
I hear that's where all my exes are. No? Get it?
Yeah. Good job. We need to start a counter,
Cringy jokes, dad jokes, all of the things.
Jalen's got them all. You name it, she's got them. But what we get out of this scene between Lila and Richter is something that I think the movie had an opportunity to expound on, but they never did. Because Lila is kind of questioning like guns in general. Like she explains that she's expected to do something important with her life since she's one of the only survivors. She didn't die that day.
Imagine the weight that would fucking
the pressure
have.
Yeah. Now I this reminds me in general of other kinds of survivors, like even just cancer survivors also feel, I think there's a term for it where like you made it through something where other people didn't and you feel some kind of like guilt. I think it's just survivor's guilt. Yeah.
They mention that a lot with like, or for example, I've heard it in stories about like 9/11 where people were meant to go to work that day but ended up not going.
Right. But their life is saved, but now it's like you kind of have a pressure on you, Mm-hmm. And,
it's crazy.
Lila definitely feels it. Mm-hmm. And Richter seems to like comfort her a little bit. So you kind of get a sense that like Rick in general, like when you're first introduced to a Richter, you might think he's an a-hole.
Yeah, but I think he's kind of got this softness to him.
He's kind of a good guy.
Kind of.
And he like when he took away the keys, he did it out of concern for Ginny.
Yeah.
And the second that he saw an opportunity to help Melody, he took it. Yeah. So he I think he definitely has good intentions.
I think so
too.
And
even when he was being criticized, but when Melody was yelling at him, he was pretty, calm about the entire situation, very explaining. I guess the worst you could take it as condescending a little bit, little mansplaining. And definitely when he, got a lot of smoke into their car when he was driving away, speeding away from them in the beginning of the movie.
Yeah.
That was kind of an a-hole move to do.
It was an a-hole move to do, but at least he didn't do something stupid like brake check them.
And also he was like, they were the ones that were coming at him initially,
Yeah.
So that could be misunderstood.
And then, like, as soon as he sees, because at the point that you're talking about, it starts pouring rain, and you can't see anything. Everyone makes their way into the bus at this point. Dante somehow wakes up and he goes outside. We don't really see the front of him until he interacts with
Richter,
who is the closest person nearby. And Richter's like, what the hell happened to you? Oh, my God. And then the lady from the bank, I think her name was like Catherine or something.
I think so.
She also is like, oh, my God. And so then not only were they already on the bus, but she sees that, Dante's outside. And she's like, oh, my God, what's going on? And then she sees his face and it's all like.
Half of his face is hanging off.
God, it was crazy looking.
Yeah, it is gnarly.
Because my brain was like, when that happened, I was like, he got cut in the neck. No, he got cut in the face.
Right in the face.
Right in the face.
Just slit through his face. Yeah. Doesn't look like a good time.
No.
Richter, I don't know why. I think he's just not thinking right, but he's like, how did this happen? As if Dante was in any kind of situation to talk or anything. But he helps Dante down to sit down, and it's in this time that Dante seems to pass.
Yeah, and so then Catherine makes her way back to the bus, and she's like, oh my God. But you'd think she'd kind of warn everybody.
Here's my idea. I think she didn't.
Because it would freak everyone out.
It would freak everybody out, and I think it was a financial thing.
Oh.
I think.
Oh, yeah.
See, this is what I mean. I feel like this movie deals with self-righteousness and people who are virtue signaling and, trying to be like, oh, I'm doing this because I'm a good person, when there's actual, like, other financial incentives.
There's, like PR behind it.
Exactly, yeah. So I kind of think...
like a publicity stunt kind of
thing. And if she tells these people, that's not going to look good for the investors, so she doesn't.
Dang, and you're right.
I think it is because she's from the bank.
Yeah.
So she's kind of on the line. Like, this is important for her, too. So
I wonder if she had any inkling about, like, her survival at this point. Because, like, my brain would be like, oh, God, I'm going to die.
Yeah, you know what?
Because, like, if she didn't, and she's like, oh, no, my investors. Like...
I don't think quite yet it was really like she felt it in her heart or anything, because she only saw a victim.
Yeah.
She saw somebody else who says they're going to go take care of the problem. And she herself is also going to inform the authorities. Yeah. And unfortunately, the authorities never show. We're in the middle of nowhere here.
And also the authorities are dead.
Yeah, exactly. So
it's assumed that there's like 2 cops.
There's only like 2 cops in the city. And so
like in Scream, where there's no cops to be found ever.
Yeah, they never show up until 3 minutes after everything's happened. But this one, it actually makes sense to me, because instead of like a big city like New York, in this one, it's like the nearest next town must be hours away. They're in the middle of nowhere.
Richter goes in being a hero, and Leatherface hears him and then hides. And then Melody does this really cool thing, which I thought was really going to get Melody caught.
Me too.
I was like, oh, he's going to see her, and then he's going to like be like, brr, like kill her under the bed. No.
But she kind of tilts a mirror so Richter can see.
My brain was like, she's going to knock the mirror down.
Me too.
No. I liked what she did, though. It was cool. But if it were me in this situation, it would be knocked over.
Why do you think that?
Because I don't have good luck. Literally, my boyfriend has this really big, cool coffin-shaped guitar case in my living room. Yeah. Over there, I was moving it around, trying to show my sister, oh, hey, have you seen this? It's really cool. Let me open it for you and show you what it looks like inside.
Oh, boy.
Literally dropped the fuck out of it. And I was like, oh, my God.
Was Patrick here?
Yes, but he was upstairs asleep.
Did he get mad?
No, because he was asleep. He didn't know.
Did you tell him later?
No, his guitar wasn't in it, so it's just a case.
Okay. I would have told him.
Nah.
This is a funny little anecdote, you know?
No, it was more of a moment with my sister. So
okay, and everybody watching the podcast.
Everybody watching the podcast, but you had to be there to understand the severity and the humor there.
I see.
My sister and I we laugh at our mistakes a lot.
Fair enough. Better to laugh than to cry.
Every day of my life. I'm just kidding.
Richter is able to see, and this Melody helps him dodge this initial attack.
Yeah, tremendously. I really thought, man, Richter's gonna get him. He's gonna get that ass.
Because I like Richter, and Richter's he's coming in loaded. He has a weapon. But Leatherface doesn't skip leg day.
Oh no, he does not. And then speaking of leg day,
yeah, he kicks him in the knee, and then his knee just like inverts.
It was like a nice little curve, just a little curve, and I was like, huh?
He got horse legs. He got an inverted knee. Looks very painful.
Very.
Despite this, he doesn't go down. He, it still ends up on top of Leatherface trying to push him against the wall.
Yeah.
They break a mirror, and Leatherface does this very simple trick where he just shoves Richter towards I don't know, it's a broken glass.
Conveniently placed shard of glass.
Yes.
And he's like, bah!
Bangs his head against it, and then he's gone for. When he falls to the ground, Richter sees Melody.
Yes.
And in his last act of being alive, he pulls his keys off of his pants and kind of lays them right in front of her.
I thought for sure Leatherface would have taken the keys.
I don't think he was. Why would he? He doesn't know how to drive. We've learned. Because like in several movies, there's cars and he never drives them.
That's true. I guess that never really dawned on me.
Yeah, he doesn't drive.
Maybe he's just never had to. That's fine.
Yeah. I mean, he seems to get along just fine, just walking everywhere. There's so many shots of Leatherface just walking slowly.
Walking or running.
Like down the street, yeah.
Spinning around. But this next scene, I was like, oh my God. Like Leatherface has this sledgehammer. Sledgehammers the F out of his head.
Yeah. Makes them into mashed potatoes. Really visceral scene. Yeah, like he just smashes this guy's head into ground beef.
To me, I just don't know that, like, I mean, there's sometimes that, like, I feel like original characters may or may not, would or would not have done it this way. Mm-hmm. There are some things that Leatherface does in this movie that I'm like, I don't think the original character would have done it that way.
Okay. So
but that's fine. It's just it's a small gripe.
Here's my attempt at like expressing that in words, I suppose, is that I think in the original film, Leatherface was more of a reactor. Mm-hmm. He wasn't very proactive. I feel like most of the things he did was because people were on his property, and then when he saw his relationship with the rest of the family, he was kind of, attacked, mocked, made fun of.
Right.
And so in this movie, Leatherface appears to be the violence he ensues is a lot more forward, I feel like, than the original.
Okay.
And has a lot more thought into it placed, I think, than the original Leatherface did.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I kind of agree with you there. I think the characterization is different.
Definitely different. Yeah. I mean, because later we get this scene where Sally Hardesty has this big standoff with him, and she's in his face, and she's like, "You don't even know who I am, do you?" kind of thing. And he just walks away. Yeah. And she's like pissed off because she's like, "Oh my God, he doesn't know who I am."
I think that scene is the crux of the movie where people just like do not like.
Yeah, to me, Leatherface would not have just let this person stand there. He would have just killed her immediately, right then and there.
Well, I think it goes both ways. I agree with you. Like Sally Hardesty eventually comes into the town, to kill Leatherface, and she finds Leatherface, points the gun right at him, and doesn't do anything about it. She doesn't shoot him. She wants him to say her name. She wants him to remember who she is and everything he did to her friends. But girl, it's Leatherface. I mean, he hardly talks. He's not going to say your name. Like you obviously don't understand him. Yeah.
Like Sally.
Yeah, and then so Sally doesn't kill him. I don't know why she doesn't. And then
because she's dumb.
And then Leatherface also doesn't kill her. He just walks away, which is all whatever until 2 seconds later she decides, you know what, I am going to shoot him, and she shoots at him. Mm-hmm. And he runs away from it, and I'm just like, this could have been avoided either way a scene ago. I don't know why you're shooting each other now, but not a second ago.
Yeah, it's just, that's like the only big gripe that I have, where I was like, what? Like, he wouldn't have just let her stand there. He would have been like, she would have been like, say my name, and he probably would have been like, and like cut her head off. Done something,
yeah.
Anything.
Yeah.
Choked her out and threw her. But I mean, we get some of that later. But
yeah, we're getting a little ahead of ourselves.
We are.
But before we get there, we have Melody making her escape.
Yeah.
Leatherface is in the other room working on his chainsaw, trying to fix it up, I suppose. And she's kind of sneaking around. She doesn't take the stairs. She does this neat trick where she like kind of hops over the stairs to get further down. But when she lands, she sees Leatherface on the top of the stairs staring right at her. And then Leatherface has moves in this movie, like I said before. And he tosses something at her. I forget what it is.
I think it was the sledgehammer. He tosses the sledgehammer at her. So then she goes flying with the sledgehammer and then falls straight through.
It's so sick. Because he just tosses it like it's nothing.
Imagine being, he's like, this is nothing. Yeah. Like, imagine him at the gym.
And she goes down.
Yeah.
And now she, has this chase with Leatherface. She gets underneath the floorboards. I forget how she ends up there. Do you remember?
Because she falls with the sledgehammer, and then she lands in the floor.
Yeah, she lands underneath the floor, and then it's this fun little trick that Leatherface does where he just sticks it in there and starts just riding it up across the floor, and she's just like crawling away from the chainsaw.
Yeah, and then luckily she runs into her sister Lila. Lila, I guess, is like suspecting something. I don't know.
I think it's just odd. She's very at odds. Everything's going awry. You know, everybody's gone. Like none of the four are with her at all.
Right.
So she goes out and she says, screw this, I'm going to go and investigate. You know, earlier she saw Catherine come into the car being all like, whoa, like, hey, everybody stay here, lock the door, nobody do anything. Lila's trying to be like getting information and be like, hey, what's going on? And they just won't tell her. So she ends up leaving and walking out in the rain, and she hears Melody's cries, screams for help. And they have like a little vent at the end of a little crawl space underneath the orphanage. And Lila helps Melody out. But before that, Leatherface cuts up one of the pipes, and a lot of poopy sewage falls upon her.
Yeah.
Very gross, very nasty. But now they are
very
both outside.
stink nasty too.
I'm sure. And it's raining.
Yeah.
And she gets it like all over her head too. So it's very gross.
Literally a poopy head.
Literally. So now Lila and Melody are running away.
Yeah. They're running away, and I don't remember where they end up per se.
They go to the bus. They run to the bus. Lila has the keys, hands it over. But while they're in the bus,
yes,
Leatherface comes up because they try to drive away.
Oh yeah, they do try to drive away. I forget. Yes, they try to escape, but Leatherface does this cool party trick where he like hits the tires.
Yeah, he likes to do that. And so the driver like is like, oh, something's wrong. Walks out, tries to find out what's wrong. He never finds out, I presume, because the next shot we get.
He really got ahead of himself.
He really did, because he ends up beheaded, his head thrown back into the front of the tour bus.
Yeah.
And now it's a problem because Leatherface gets on the bus. And this is the scene where, as you mentioned earlier, where there's a bunch of people in this bus and they're just looking at Leatherface standing inside the bus with a chainsaw. And all of them pull their phones out and start going live, right?
Yes, because apparently this was like a dark humor thing, because it was like a thing about cell phone culture and how instead of people actually like doing something, they just pull out their fucking phones to document it. But I understand the commentary there, and I do think that there's some truth to that, and that it is humorous. But it's also like it's got this level of sadness that it is because of that truth, where it's like instead of just fucking recording everything, I don't know,
do something, because Leatherface, because they threaten him. They're
like, one move and you're canceled.
Leatherface doesn't care about being canceled. He doesn't know what cancel is.
Like, I'm like, okay,
you idiots. Yes, they're dumb. And you know what's even funnier? I don't know if you noticed any of the comments on the live stream.
No.
Because Leatherface, obviously doesn't care about this, slaughters the bus. Like, just like limbs flying everywhere. Like
legs. People,
arms,
chainsaws people together.
He pushes a chainsaw to somebody and then pushes that somebody into somebody else.
It was fucking legendary.
It was a slaughter. Yeah, it was a bloodbath.
Yeah.
And in the live stream, you could see like, oh my gosh, this is so fake. Or like, where is this? I want to go there. Because people
think it's a haunted house.
Something like that. Yeah.
Because everyone's perception of reality is skewed because of social media.
Yes.
People, I don't know. I know that there have been several things that have been trending that were real, and people didn't know it was real at first. And then people would be like, oh my God, if you run across this video, here's the beginning. Here's what the beginning frame looks like. Don't watch it. Because people have, recorded, unaliving themselves before and posted it online. And it's
I hate that.
Very triggering and sad and stuff. So then at first people probably think it's fake and all kinds of crazy shit. I mean, it's like that YouTube thing with Logan Paul or one of the Paul brothers.
Yeah.
I don't know, when they recorded a dead body in the woods or something.
Yeah. It is, And it happens a lot. There's people out there who are doing this intentionally.
Yeah.
They to troll people to get them to see these imagery that they probably wouldn't have liked to see otherwise. Yeah. It's awful. And so, we saw the movie The Menu recently, and they have a similar experience to that, where things start going awry in that movie as well. Mm. And some of the people think it's part of the show. They're
like, oh, he's so dramatic, so theatrical.
Yeah. So I believe that. I feel like we are kind of like that. I feel like we try not to believe it's this awful thing.
Yeah, I agree. I think that there is some truth to that, which is really, it makes it even more sad. but also to even tie it back to the school shooting like story attached to Lila's character, we're so numb to things.
Yeah, desensitized.
We're so desensitized to things that we're not like. It's like, oh, okay, like that's our reality.
If we hear about another school shooting, something that's like the response it should garner is like this very like deep sadness and just like a loss. Mm-hmm. You know, that you feel that this grievance,
this grief, this fear, this anger
amongst us. When we hear that in the news, it's just the next month, and it's like, oh, that's sad. But we just don't have the emotional capacity to be sad about every kid when it happens so often. It's just part of the norm, like you said.
Yeah, because it's like, oh my gosh, if you go online on this mass shooting like website thing, it tells you how many shootings there are per day, and it's like they literally are happening every day, and a lot of them do go like unreported as far as like on the media coverage. Yeah. But that doesn't mean it didn't happen.
Exactly.
But it's just like...
Because like Columbine was huge.
Yeah.
Stonewall was huge. But then you like when it happens so often, it's like they don't put every one of them on the news.
And it's probably because it happens so often that they probably just can't cover it all.
Yeah, exactly.
Which makes it really sad that is our fucking reality.
That's our reality.
But I mean, yeah, that's the take that I get from it though, is that like that's our desensitization as a culture, is that, you know, even when we're faced with death and these horrible things, our brain goes into this record mode. Like,
yeah. And even like in other situations, when people go to concerts, they'll spend a lot of their time recording the concert. Or something that I think is funnier is like people that go to the Louvre in France, and like they take a picture of the Mona Lisa, and I'm like, what is the picture for? You're taking the worst photo that has ever been taken of the Mona Lisa.
Yeah.
And like for what? To prove that you were there? We believe that you were there. Like, why do you need this photograph?
Right.
Just enjoy it. But, you know, that's neither here or there. You know, I went to a museum in Chicago, took a picture of some Van Gogh paintings.
I mean, my brain, whenever any like things happen, especially like, I mean, I'm a fur mama. I'm a cat mom. So my brain, when something adorable is happening, I'm like, take a photo.
Oh, that's fine. That's different, I feel like.
Because I have like a million of them.
I love taking photos, especially of like personal moments. Mm-hmm. And I've recorded a video on at a concert, taking pictures at a concert. I'm mostly talking about people who will pull up Snapchat and Snapchat the entire concert.
Yes.
And I'm just like, one, you're blocking the view of people.
Yes.
Two, you're posting it on Snapchat. Like, when I come across those videos on Snapchat, skip.
Immediately, I go as fast as possible.
Why do I want to watch 30 minutes of your freaking concert? I don't want to watch that. It's your crappy phone and like, I don't know, miles away from the freaking stage. I don't care.
Right.
You're just trying to show off what you're doing.
And I mean, I understand like posting photos, maybe small snippets, stuff like that. I think that makes sense. But like, there are also some things that should just be for you.
But yeah, Melody and Lila, they kind of escaped to the bathroom part of the RV, this giant tour bus. And luckily for them, there's a vent above them. So Lila gets out from the top of the vent. Melody gets kind of stuck because Leatherface makes a hole in the door with his chainsaw and is, you know, threatening Melody. But she, you know, pulls out this little pin that she got back at the gas station at the beginning of the movie and stabs his arm with it. It's this cute little chainsaw.
It's a little baby chainsaw.
Yeah, great piece of merch. They should have sold that.
Yeah, they should have.
Right?
Which is really funny though, because my brother dressed up as Leatherface for Halloween last year.
Oh, cool.
At my mom's like Halloween party, and he didn't have like a prop like chainsaw with him, but he did have a teeny tiny one.
That's cute. You'll have to.
So he would be like, and it was just like a private funny little moment, and I was like, haha, it's funny. It made me think of that, so made me giggle.
This gave her the chance to escape.
Yeah.
So they got out and they're running down the street.
It makes me laugh though, because like he probably was like, "The fuck is this?"
Yeah, and pulled it out.
Yeah.
Like a little needle.
Like, what is this shit?
Yeah. Because he probably doesn't know the publicity that he has. Or maybe he does. I don't know. He's probably been in the paper. Maybe he knows about it.
I don't know.
We don't know. But Lila and Melody end up running into the street. Read? I don't think so. My guess would be there's no evidence to show me that he can or can't. So I don't really know.
But he also doesn't really. I mean, well, you can read and not speak. You can be nonverbal. I don't know.
Yeah. So I'm not quite sure, but my guess is
I just have lots of questions about this character, especially this characterization in general. I guess because like he's in an orphanage, so my brain's like,
maybe there's school there.
I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know either. But Melody and Lila run into a car.
Yeah.
It ends up being
none other than
Sally Hardesty.
And she's all cowgirl mode, that ranger mode.
She's a ranger. She's got her hat on. Mm-hmm. And she tells them to get into the back seat. They do. And then she's like, all right, I'm leaving y'all. Yeet, YOLO, baby. And they're screaming their head off. You can't leave us here. They're locked in. This
cracked me up.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. I was like, what the hell's happening right now?
Yeah. Melody's been through hell. I mean, she's the one that's kind of been suffering like the entire movie, basically.
Yeah.
Like even before Leatherface was a factor, she was the one that was stressed out about what happened to Ginny.
I mean, rightfully so. It's guilty conscience because they were wrong.
Yeah. Melody tells Lila that she's not gonna let anything happen to her.
Which is really funny.
Which is really funny because while they're stuck in the backseat of this car, Sally goes into the orphanage to confront Leatherface. And this is where we get that scene where we talked about where they stare each other down and nobody does anything. Well, that just doesn't make any sense to me.
She uses this moment to like try to get revenge for Pamela and Kirk and Franklin and Jerry. You know me.
But he doesn't, is the thing.
He's like, and I've killed millions of people. What do you mean?
Yeah. I doubt he remembers.
He's like, bitch, you ain't special.
But apparently she is because he doesn't kill her then.
He doesn't.
I feel like he should, which, like I said, doesn't make any sense because 2 seconds later, she's shooting at him.
I see that's my brain not understanding. I'm like, what?
Yeah, I don't understand what happened in that scene. I feel like they probably just wrote themselves into a corner, and like they had like the next plot point planned out, but they didn't know how to get there.
Yeah, maybe.
And this is how they wrote themselves out of that situation, I guess, which I think is kind of silly. But on the way there, he gets shot by Sally, and this is why it's funny because he's trying to kill Melody right after she says, "I'm not gonna let anything happen to you."
I'm not gonna let anything happen to you.
Right.
Which he also chainsaws the hell out of Sally, and then like picks her up and like fucking yeets her.
That's right.
That was hilarious.
Because what happens is that after Sally shoots Leatherface, he goes around a corner and then Sally gives the keys to Melody.
Yeah.
And
she's like, get the fuck out of here or something like that.
But yeah, you're right. This is the moment where we get a confrontation between Sally and Leatherface. And this moment, again, it happens where like they're facing each other head to head. She puts her gun up to his face again and then decides to stab him in the side instead. Like, I feel like she's trying to make him suffer or something, but I'm like, just kill the man. And because she doesn't, he does take his chainsaw, puts it right through her, and then picks his chainsaw up into the air and then tosses her like 10 feet into the trash.
That was hilarious.
And I just didn't understand. Like, I feel like Sally's inclusion in the movie was like the weakest point for me.
It was for me too, because I was like, I mean, you mean to tell me? Like, and I promise you when we get to the other franchise that they do this more successfully, you will understand exactly what I'm talking about. Because there's a difference between, because it was more fleshed out in the other franchise. Right. This one, it was like a last minute, like, oh,
Tacked
we need like something else to call back to the other movies to make it all like in the same universe kind of thing. And I'm like, it wasn't well done and there wasn't a lot that happened. And then you mean to tell me she waited all that time to not fucking kill this man? No.
Yeah. Well, this is what I've heard. I've heard that this movie's self-aware of the film that you're talking about, and that it's like a parody of it, and like this part of it, it's like this
so
is
you
a more.
kind of know the franchise that
I've just because I heard somebody say it, and
interesting,
and so I heard somebody say like this is a more realistic approach to that. Like this is what like if it went another way, it could have just been like this.
I understand that parody of it. I do. But I think that there's like these are different fight or flight responses. Mm-hmm. This being like a try to fight kind of thing, but you freeze in the moment, and then the other one being actually fighting.
Yeah, I think. I just think even if it is satirization, I don't think it really comes off as like entertaining. Like if you are gonna do anything like a parody or make fun of poke fun at something, it has to be funny. Like it has to work. Like evoke like some kind of emotion out of you, and this one doesn't.
Think the only emotion that comes out of me is when he like yeets the body, and then I'm like.
And that to me isn't worth it enough to have this whole interaction with Sally.
It's not worth it for that, because to me it wasn't executed well. And then I'm like, if you were like, that movie executed the storyline well, this just did not. And then to find out like that's just a satirization of it makes it worse for me, because then it's like, so not only did you like make fun of it, but then you also didn't succeed with it either. Yeah. So, I mean...
Like for nothing, basically.
For nothing. It was just thrown in.
Yeah.
So, well, I mean...
Yeah.
Take what you want.
After Sally meets her demise, supposedly, Melody and Lila take the car, start driving it, and Melody decides she wants to crash into Leatherface. Why she would, I'm not sure. I would have left. I would have just, let... Leatherface do what he's gonna do and just get the heck out of Dodge. But she decides to try to drive into him. Doesn't quite work. I think he throws his chainsaw and then elbows the car and causes them to crash into Richter's like mechanic shop.
Yeah.
And doing so, Melody is left impaled. I'm not sure what she's impaled by, but it's like a metal rod.
It almost looks like it could be like the gear shift thing. But I'm not sure. I'm not sure
it's from the inside of the car or from like where they crash.
I don't know. I don't know nothing about cars.
But I do like this little interaction here because she kind of admits like, hey, Lila, get out of here. Like I'm stuck. There's no hope. I'm going to die. That's just a situation. But you have to get out of here. And this is kind of the point of the movie where I was waiting for the whole film because I recognized that Melody was wrong, from the beginning of the movie. And she needed to confront that she set all these actions into motion to begin with by intruding in the house, and she is confronted by Leatherface, and she apologizes to him. I'm sorry for killing your mama.
Yeah. And then so we think that she's about to get it, and then fucking Lila gets all cocky. Hey, Leatherfuck.
I love that.
And then awkward. Nothing happened.
Yeah, the gun ain't got nothing.
That is so like, oh, that's so funny.
Yeah, I really enjoyed the like I said, I really like Lila's character in this movie. So I was really, I thought when she said that, hey, Leatherfuck, and I'm like, first of all, I like that line just alone of itself. I'm like, oh crap, like she's gonna do something, but she inevitably doesn't do anything. But as far as like Melody's setup, like I feel like that would have been a cool death scene there, where it's like, oh, it's her, she's facing like her own manifestation.
Yeah.
But she doesn't die here; she lives, and I think she just gets saved for an even better situation later on down the movie. But while Leatherface is now approaching Lila, it turns out Sally not done yet. Nope. She has a weapon of her own, and she starts shooting Leatherface, getting her off of Lila. And then Lila and Sally have a short little conversation about like how she shouldn't run because it's going to haunt her the rest of her life if she does.
Again, another satirization of the franchise that I'm talking about that we will later get to, which is a great franchise that I love a lot. Because that's something that's actually become a meme, is that Jamie Lee Curtis about Laurie Strode, is that she's like, this movie's about trauma, but she says trauma really funny.
Oh, really?
She says trauma, like trauma.
Trauma. That's kind of how it's spelled.
I mean, that is how it's spelled, but like it's just the repetition of it. So people like, I mean, she's really like receptive to her presence online, and she's like, oh, shut up, I know. And so like, I think it's really funny, but to me, I'm just like, okay, and like, what's your point in trying to make fun of it? I don't understand. They do it well. You don't. it doesn't land. Like you said, it's like a really bad joke. It bombed like that because of it.
Well, she takes the gun and loads it for Lila, and then Lila chases Leatherface into the theater that he ran into. And this is where we get Leatherface setting up a couple of traps. Like he makes a lot of noise with his chainsaw and then puts it down, so Lila thinks that's where he is, but really he's right next to her. So he tackles her, and then they fall into like this little pond,
just a little pool of water, casually.
Yes, and they kind of have their tussle in below the water. We don't really know what goes on down there.
This made me like think of it was like a callback to part 3.
Oh yeah,
because that happened in like that nasty like pond or whatever it was.
I hadn't thought about that, but yeah, that has happened before.
And I was like, oh God, what's gonna happen? And then somehow Lila gets out, and then my brain's like, how?
Because we don't see any of it.
We don't see any of it. I would have loved to have seen some struggle, maybe some hands like just coming out of the water situation. We don't get any of that. So I'm like, you mean to tell me this young, potentially teenage girl overtook this grown tower of a man under the water?
Yeah.
There's no way. I'm way weaker underwater.
I don't know. Yeah, I have no clue what must have ensued.
It's like punching someone in your dreams. You're like, what? I just don't understand unless you kick the crap out of him.
Or he hit his head on something or something. But yeah, she comes out first and she, starts crawling towards the gun a little too slow because Leatherface jumps out like a salmon going upstream a hill.
He does. It's so bad.
I liked it. I
it
guess.
Was funny because I was
he really comes out of there.
Literally almost just straight up. Just like I was like, how did this happen?
I have no clue, but I did enjoy it. And then he's in an altercation for a brief second.
You know what this reminds me of?
What's up?
The memes of people like getting out of swimming pools. So I'm like Lila getting out of a swimming pool where I have to like army crawl and then like roll out of the swimming pool, and then the other person like looks like a fish, like or a mermaid, just perfectly jumping out of the water.
I haven't seen this. You'll have to show me.
Oh my God, it's literally like, I'm pretty sure it's like a girl like trying to look sexy getting out of the pool, where she's like just pushing herself up and she's able to get out, and the other person literally has both of their hands like this, and her leg is struggling. It's me. And it's like me and other girls.
It's just you're so heavy when you leave the water.
Like I'm like, how do you make it look so effortless? You look like a fucking mermaid, and I look like Humpty Dumpty rolling out of the water.
I just feel like it's like it happens slowly. It's a weird sensation, is it not?
It is.
Because in the water you feel like
light as a feather.
But then when you're getting out of it, it's like you're wearing like steel boots or something.
You're like, fuck, I'm so dense. And then you're like all of the water is like in your bathing suit, and then you're like leaking everywhere.
Your hair's wet. This whole situation.
Oh my! It's like you're so hyper aware of like how much you weigh, and you're like, I can't move.
But I guess the people who are doing it in a sexy way must just be strong, right? They're just like pushing through that.
They gotta be.
Yeah.
Because I don't know how to do that.
Because they have the same gravity working against them, so I don't know.
I don't know. Maybe we're just not all like.
We're not like Leatherface.
We're not like Leatherface. Just I want to be able to pop out like that, like a smooth baby salmon.
Yeah. I mean, with force, like a dolphin, like effortlessly.
Yes. The man like knew what he was doing.
Yeah. Well, he gets into a brief altercation with Elsie Fisher's character, Lila, to be saved by Melody, who was able to get that rod out of her thigh. Mm-hmm. And she is like a spider monkey.
Even though my brain is still like, how?
Yeah, we don't get to see it really because we see it through Lila's eyes, and she's like going in and out of it. She's
disoriented. It's making her think about all of the things that she's gone through. She's about to accept her fate. Kind of like, I guess she almost maybe accepted her fate back at the school shooting where she thought she was dead, but then wasn't. Mm-hmm. Who knows? Like, that's. So I imagine I would probably be very like dissociative at that point.
Yeah, and that's what she was. And so I think, doesn't she grab the shotgun here? Yeah, she grabs the shotgun, gets back into it, shoots Leatherface, I think a couple of times.
He somehow gets her, I think he gets her Achilles heel or something by her foot, because he like slides. I don't know.
I love, like, that's one of my, like I said, Leatherface has moves in this movie. And he does this wicked move that we've never seen before of him like taking the chainsaw and like rolling it across the ground, spinning. Awesome shot.
Ouchie.
But Leatherface is apparently dismayed by the two sisters when they shoot him, and when Melody takes the chainsaw, slow motion, kind of walks up to him, and then gives him a little graze on his chin,
just a little,
and then he falls backwards into the water.
You mean to tell me you think that's gonna kill that man?
They haven't seen the Scream movies where we know you always got to shoot him in the head.
Double tap.
Yeah, Nev Campbell, but
Zombieland taught me that. You always double tap.
Well, they never watched Zombieland. They're not fans of Mark Zuckerberg. What's his name?
Mark Zuckerberg.
Jesse Eisenberg.
Oh, yeah, he did play Mark Zuckerberg in The Social Network. I forget.
Yeah. And the day is saved. Many, many people have died along the way, but Melody and Lila, the two sisters, the heart of the movie, it's a brand new day. And we're in the Tesla. We're setting the autopilot. Let's go back home. And then Lila cracks this joke about you know what? I'm going to move down here with you,
Yeah, I'm going to move down here with you. Fuck it. It's fine.
Yeah. And then it turns out Leatherface isn't dead yet. Cracks the window, pulls Melody straight out. The Tesla's already set on autopilot, so it's already moving away.
Yeah.
And then as she's moving away, Leatherface takes the chainsaw, cleanly just slices off Melody's head with the chainsaw.
And then he's like, hey, yo, I got your sister, bruh.
Yeah, holds her head up.
Holds her head.
She's just been executed. And then he does his little dance.
I mean, I like those tidbits of kind of the humor where you're like, oh, you think you're safe. Wrong. Psych.
I loved it because it took me out. I was not expecting that.
I wasn't expecting that either.
He just pulled her out. I mean, she's a small girl.
Yeah.
So it makes sense to me. And then he just slices her head off because I really felt like everything was safe.
Yeah, I did too. I was under the notion, we're done. It's the next day.
Yeah.
But I was like, there's no way that he would have not survived that chin graze.
Just graze of the chin. I don't understand.
Maybe if you would have been all the way through his head, yeah, I'd been like, he's dead.
Also, why would you use a chainsaw like that? Like a sword, swinging it instead of stabbing it? Do the stab.
Right.
They're not Leatherface. They don't know. You know what I mean?
But also I guess they don't also have his stature. He, he's a big, and he's big in stature, strong, sledgehammer. He can throw it like it's nothing.
Yeah.
He's like, this is a frisbee to me, bitch. And so I mean, chainsaws probably I don't know, holding an electric toothbrush to him. Yeah. He's probably like, I can do this all day.
Nothing.
And she's probably like, this is heavy.
Yeah, it's probably really heavy.
I would be the same way. I have no upper body strength.
It's difficult, and she's a small girl, so I can see that. And also, I enjoy this kind of I think it's an homage to the original, where Sally's getting away and looking back at what's happening. Elsie Fisher's Lila's doing the same thing while the car's on autopilot
out.
as the car drives away.
Yeah, this ending, I guess, kind of bored me.
I like this ending here. I really like this last kill.
It was unexpected and nice, but at the same time, we're led, I guess they leave it off, we're led to believe that Elsie Fisher is going to be the final girl for the next one. I don't know.
Maybe. Did you see the after credit scene?
I did see the after credit scene. This is the first Leatherface film that we have an after credit scene.
Because you have to have one of those nowadays.
We have to. We're expecting them now.
Yeah, and it looks like he's going back to the house from the original movie. Mm-hmm. I don't know if his other family members are in there.
There is no way in hell. None.
Well, apparently Leatherface is still out here,
If you come out with a new movie and I see the family, we're going to have a talk. And if we get a dinner scene, we're going to have a talk.
I'm done with the dinner scene. Please,
done
no
with
more
the dinner
scenes.
Stop it.
I don't want them.
I don't want them either. I want more of an original story. This was an original story. Mm-hmm. The only thing that I was like, what about was the fucking orphanage and the tie-in with that. Because it was the timelines just don't add up, babe. That's it.
Just reboot it. This was a requel, kind of like Scream, thoughts. This is kind of we do kind of a sequel, but it also has tie-ins to old characters in the Sally in this movie. But yeah, that's Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2022. It's been brought to my attention that none of these movies have the same name. Because the original is called The Texas Chain Space Saw Massacre.
Yeah.
And then there's no space in Chainsaw for the 2003 film, and this one drops the And
so
it's just
Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
Exactly. But yeah, I am kind of like you. I kind of enjoyed this movie. I think it had a lot to give. As I said previously, it's very evocative. And I can't decide if it's positive or negative, because at times I was very annoyed.
Yeah.
Like I said, because these characters and their gentrification of this town. And at other times, I was just enamored by the cinematography, the ingenuity of like the killings and like how gruesome they appear to be.
Yeah.
We completely left it out, but one of the most gruesome killings, in my opinion, was back at the bus when Catherine was trying to get out through a window, and he takes a chainsaw and slices her in half while she's trying to get out the window.
Oh yes, and then we just see the upper half of her body just fall off, and we see some leftover intestines and
they're hanging, and then it takes time for them to catch up, and that's just like a neat little like it's like rope or whatever.
Yeah, I loved it. Yeah. I loved it. It's gross. It's gutty. It's just fun.
So ultimately, my feelings about the movie are a bit mixed.
Yeah, truly.
But to get into our rankings, I'll go first for this one, Geraldine.
Yeah, go for it.
My current rankings stand at 2017's Leatherface at number 1, number 2, The Beginning, number 3, the original 1974 film, number 4, Texas Chainsaw 3D, number 5, the 2003 remake, number 6, Leatherface, Texas Chainsaw Massacre 3, number 7, Texas Chainsaw Massacre Part 2, and at last place, Leatherface.
No, it's Texas Chainsaw Massacre, The Next Generation.
Yeah, sorry. At last place, Texas Chainsaw Massacre, The Next Generation. This movie, like I said, is a mixed bag for me. I want to like it more than I do. I think the cinematography does a lot for me. Apparently, this movie did have some trouble in the production of it, because they had a director and they started filming. And then when they got the first scenes back, the studio didn't like them. And so they fired the director. And
they had to reshoot everything.
They had to reshoot it with this new director, same script, same actors. So whenever stuff like that happens, I wish I could see the other footage just to see how bad, what they didn't like about it.
That's always interesting.
So it did have some trouble, and it is on Netflix. It didn't have a theatrical release. Apparently, some people think that it's because they didn't think it was good enough to put in the theater, so they sold it to Netflix. I don't know how true that is. I think that's all speculation.
But that's also interesting because of all of this this big strike that we have with both writers and actors with residuals. Now it makes me wonder, are they even making anything off of this?
Probably not.
Which is because
insane,
the
right?
fucking billionaires want to keep everything for themselves and not pay people what they're fucking worth. Without those writers and actors, you would have nothing. Pieces of shit. That's why you have no talent.
And it sucks because these actors, none of them are huge actors.
Yeah.
And they still have rent to pay. They still got to make their money.
That's sad to me because Elsie Fisher is fantastic, right?
Yeah.
They had a theatrical release of her movie 8th Grade with Bo Burnham, done by Bo Burnham. Great film. Great film.
Loved it, yeah.
They think that they did a disservice to this one by not releasing it in theaters.
I mean, I would have gone to see it.
I would have gone to see it on the big screen.
All that being said, this movie is mixed for me. And looking at my list, Geraldine, I decided where I'm going to put it.
I'm nervous.
And I am going to put it somewhere that is a kind of a hard decision for me to make in some ways, and kind of an easy decision for me to make in other ways.
Okay.
I'm going to set this movie to my new number 5. So
okay.
I think this movie, I put it better than the 2003 remake. I just don't like Kemper. And I think about the beginning, and it just always reminds me that it's a much better version of the remake, the 2003 remake. I like the prequel better. And I put it below Texas Chainsaw 3D because I just think that one's stupid fun. I feel like it's stupid. Some of my favorite movies in the whole franchise. Do your thing, cuz.
Oh my God, I want to punch you.
I love that. Or I'm a Sawyer. I love those moments.
So you're a Hartman? Well, I'm a Sawyer. Bitch, shut up. You knew you were a Sawyer for 2 seconds.
I love it. And that's why it's my number 4. So it's not quite as fun as that movie, but the cinematography is still good. So I put it right below Texas Chainsaw 3D at number 5.
Interesting. Okay. I am going to struggle with this one, but okay, here we go. So my current ranking stands at, in first place, the original 1974 film. In second place, The Beginning. In third place, Leatherface 2017. In fourth place, the 2003 remake. In fifth place, Texas Chainsaw 3D. In sixth place, Leatherface Texas Chainsaw Massacre Part 3. In seventh place, Texas Chainsaw Massacre The Next Generation. And in eighth place, Texas Chainsaw Massacre Part 2. I think where I'm going to struggle is because of... I think I know where I'm going to put it as well.
Okay, exciting.
So, the cinematography is well done. The story is interesting enough, but there are definitely gripes for me where I'm like, this was not needed. Especially Sally Hardesty's involvement in it. It felt like it wanted to be satire, but it ultimately didn't land that way. But it did achieve some of the dark humor far better than Texas Chainsaw 3D.
No.
But the kills were brutal. Not as brutal as some of the other ones that we've watched, but they were really brutal, which was enjoyable for me. The mask was not as cool as some of the other ones. And there were not many other things going on. I mean, this movie was simply all about him as well, which was cool for me. But I don't know. This is really tough. I think I'm going to put it in my fifth place. So in between, to the 2003 remake is still better than it for me as far as the story. I think that it was a really good, solid remake of the original film. And I think it's ultimately not as bad as Texas Chainsaw 3D.
Well, that's fair enough. So that means it's both our fifth places.
It's both our fifth places, so it's right in the middle for us.
Yeah, right in the middle. So not kind of splitting the good movies from the bad movies for each of us.
Yeah. I agree. Yeah.
I know we have different opinions on 3D. I personally think it's really fun. And you, I think, find it grating, yeah?
What do you mean?
Like a little hard to watch.
It wasn't the worst thing I've ever seen, obviously. It's just the story, it felt kind of rushed. There were definitely a lot of inconsistencies. The timeline didn't add up at all. I mean, there were just things that I was like, what?
Right, fair enough. I just like hanging out with Heather and, her attitude.
I hated it.
But
also, none of the characters had chemistry. None of them. But in 2022's, they did have chemistry.
That's fair. Yeah, there's more depth to them, like you said.
More depth, and, you could kind of, I don't know, like, the motivation's there, like, you get it.
Yeah, but you don't get a do your thing cuz moment.
I don't need to do your thing cuz. We get a hey leather fuck. I don't know.
Okay, you know what? You're right. Yeah.
That was better to me, even though it was cringe as hell.
So, yeah, everybody, that does it for season 3. We have our lists.
Yeah.
And you know what? I'm just going to go over... Let's go over our final list since this is the last episode of the season real quick. 9 movies. There's a lot of movies in this franchise.
A lot of movies.
You haven't seen... If you're listening to this one, I know that you haven't seen all of them. I know you haven't. And I know I have. So I'm the authority here. My list goes... My final list.
Okay.
Number 1, Leatherface. Number 2, The Beginning. Number 3, the original 1974. Number 4, Texas Chainsaw 3D. Number 5, the 2022 remake or requel. Number 6, the 2003 remake. Number 7, Leatherface, Texas Chainsaw Massacre 3. Number 8, Texas Chainsaw Massacre Part 2. And at last place, The Next Generation.
All right. My ending of the season ranking is in first place, the original 1974 film. In second place, Texas Chainsaw Massacre: The Beginning. In third place, Leatherface 2017. Fourth place, the 2003 remake. Fifth place, the 2022 requel. In sixth place, Texas Chainsaw 3D. In seventh place, Leatherface, Texas Chainsaw Massacre Part 3. In eighth place, Texas Chainsaw Massacre: The Next Generation. And my final and last place film for the entire franchise is Texas Chainsaw Massacre Part 2. fuck Chop Top, fuck Lefty, fuck Stretch, that are stupid.
Wow. Okay. Well, we don't disagree that much in our list. I feel like I think our top 3 are the same movies. Mm-hmm. We both like the original, the beginning, and Leatherface.
Yeah.
They're just backwards in our listings. We both have the beginning at number 2. So that movie was like a really great showing. I feel like we both really enjoyed that. And as far as the bottom of our middle of the list is the same as well. 2022 and 3 are right next to each other in our lists. They're just swapped. Yeah. In each other's lists, and our bottom 3 are the same in our list, where they're in different spots, but we both dislike Leatherface, Texas Chainsaw Massacre 3, Texas Chainsaw The Next Generation, and Texas Chainsaw Massacre Part 2.
So many fucking movies with long ass titles. Shorten your titles, guys.
Yeah, you guys should do that because it makes it hard on me to say all these words right next to each other. But yeah, it was a fun time.
It was a good time.
I'm very wonder if anybody's listening to this. I just want to know what you guys think, because I know you haven't seen all the movies, and I have. So I want to know if your perception is different than mine, because we may have had different experiences.
If you have seen the movies, do you agree with our rankings? Do you disagree with our rankings? Why or why not? Do you love the supposedly beloved Texas Chainsaw Massacre Part 2? If you do, why?
Why? It's kind of a lot. I don't like it.
I don't like it either.
Yeah. Remember when Stretch like dances with the...
Don't remind me.
Yeah.
Don't remind me.
Well, thank you everybody for tuning in to this season. It's our longest season yet. 9 whole freaking episodes. We really appreciate it. We're going to have a nice little special soon.
But then our following season is going to be just as long.
Oh, it's actually going to be 1 episode longer.
1 episode longer.
I'm going to go ahead and tell you guys, right? It's the next season we're doing that I'm really excited about. I feel like the tables are being flipped a little bit because it's the only franchise that I'm like previously familiar with doing this podcast, where I've seen like, if not all, most of the movies. We are doing Saw, which is right now 9 movies, but in about a month, 10 movies.
Which we're still really upset about because the original release date was late October.
Yes, so we had already planned.
They played a little switcheroo on us.
Yeah, so it's coming up a lot faster than we anticipated. We'll get to it when we get to it. Hopefully we can put out some extra episodes so that we can time the release of our newest podcast for the new Saw movie to its release. But we'll just see how it goes.
We'll see how it goes. Pray for me. I'm trying to get a new job. That will give me more time to do more episodes.
That's right.
Pray for me, guys. We got it.
Manifestation.
Manifestations, baby.
Let's all do it.
2023. I almost said 2022. My years are off.
Yeah.
COVID kind of fucked us all up, you know?
I don't even know what time of day it is right now. But yeah.
I barely know the time of year, so.
Yeah. Thanks, everybody, for listening, and we'll see you next season.
Happy season finale.
Woo! Bye.
Woo! Bye.
Thank you for listening to Fright or Flight, a Live Oaks Village production. This episode was hosted by Geraldine Johnson and Saul Alberto Arizmendi Ochoa. Editing and music composition by Saul Alberto Arizmendi Ochoa.